So if you don't remember anything else we say today, let go my soul and trust in him. The waves and wind still know his name. We just sang that, and it just struck as I think about where we're going today as we talk about loneliness. The waves and wind. Remember that moment when Jesus gets woken up in the boat because the disciples are afraid, and he gets up because he's sleeping in the middle of it. And they say, "Aren't you afraid we're going to die? Don't you care that we're going to die?" And he speaks to the wind and the waves, and they stop. Let go my soul and trust in him. The wind and waves still know his name. I love the Psalms, and we've been going through the Psalms because I find myself able to relate. You know, a lot of times in the Bible we learn about amazing people, and they're usually flawed, apart from Jesus. They're flawed people, but they're amazing people, and they make decisions sometimes that are courageous, and I look at them and think, I don't know that I could have done that. I don't know that I could have gone up against Goliath if I were David. You know, I don't know if I could have preached the gospel in the way that Paul did. I don't know that I could have done all that stuff. So sometimes I don't relate as well to that, the ability to do that stuff. But you open the Psalms and you read the words of the writers, and you hear the prayers. You hear them cry out to God in their darkest and worst moments. And I go, I can relate to that because I've been in those moments when I just want to cry out and ask God where he is. And loneliness is one of those. You know, we are a lonely people, and it's kind of ridiculous. If you have a phone, you know, you pull out your phone and you can turn to your contacts. I was looking at this the other day. So I open my phone and I turn to my contacts, and I can just scroll, and it just scrolls like seemingly endlessly the numbers of people that I have contact with. Mine, it says 279. That's how many I have in my contact list. Some of those are family, some of them are friends, some of them are church people, some of them are former, friends from other places that I've lived, former colleagues, people that I worked with or went to school with. And I've got this list, and at any time, if I feel alone, I could really open up my phone and at least send a text or make a phone call and reach out to somebody, right? I mean, I'm connected. Or if you're on social media, it's even bigger than that. I opened up my Facebook. I don't know if you ever do this, to see how many friends you have on Facebook. So I opened it up because I wanted to see, because I can't remember, and I get requests every once in a while, and I find people from my past, and we just make it up. And I looked it up, and I have 1,220 friends on Facebook, and we are all like this. I mean, 1,220 besties on Facebook, right? Because they're all your closest friends. But we tend to find loneliness in the midst of it. We're as connected as we've ever been. And yet, in a recent survey that was put on by the Cigna Health Insurance Company, it said 46% reported that they sometimes or always feel alone. 46% sometimes, at least sometimes or always, feel alone. And they said that the role of social media and connectedness plays a part in that, and it depends on how you interact. It says actually, the studies show that if you use Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, whatever, to keep in touch with friends and forge offline connections, it can add vitality and communion to your life. But if you spend hours every day using social media as a substitute for real connection, your feelings of loneliness and inadequacy will likely get worse. We're as connected as we've ever been. But sometimes we substitute this connection with real connection, and we find ourselves alone. The reality is we all feel alone. Psychology Today article said, though our need to connect is innate, many of us frequently feel alone. Even some people who are surrounded by others throughout the day or are in a long-lasting marriage still experience a deep and pervasive loneliness. I think that's true. It hits all of us at some point or another. I mean, not every day or every moment, but even in a family relationship, even when you're surrounded by friends, even when you're in a church community, even when you have people around you at work, no matter how you surround yourself, we have those moments where we just feel alone. And it really has nothing to do with how things are going in your life at all. Because one of the greatest places we see loneliness is in those who seem to have it all. You look at celebrities, we see intense loneliness. It's evidenced by many of the problems that we see. That, of course, because they're celebrities, are right in front of everyone's faces. But we see the suicides of people like the DJ Avicii, of Robin Williams, of Kurt Cobain, Ernest Hemingway, many others. That loneliness that exists even in success and money and fame. We see it in the overdoses, the death of many, Marilyn Monroe and Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, others who again, that intensity of loneliness leads to addiction. In an interview, Justin Bieber said this: "I'm struggling just to get through the day." You get lonely, when you're on the road. People see the glam and the amazing stuff, but they don't know the other side. This life can rip you apart. Bieber went on to detail the isolation of camping out in hotel rooms and avoiding fans and photographers. He says, "I feel isolated. You're in your hotel room and there are fans all around, paparazzi following you everywhere, and it gets intense. When you can't go anywhere or do anything alone, you get depressed. I would not wish this upon anyone." So we feel it every day. Normal people, we feel alone sometimes. We see that even those who are the most successful, the most beloved in our culture, feel alone and feel lonely sometimes. We see it in the people of God too. Look back through Scripture, we see many who deal with loneliness throughout the pages. We even see, as I told the kids, God at the very beginning even sees it in Adam, the reality that he needs a partner. He needs someone who is like him, because all these great animals and all this amazing paradise of a garden is not just quite going to cut it. And we see it in one of the prophets named Elijah. You may remember the story of Elijah. We told it to our kids at Vacation Bible School this summer about Elijah the prophet who went up against the prophets of Baal, who called down fire from heaven to prove that God is real when the prophets of Baal couldn't get anything to work. And so Elijah calls down fire, and it comes and it proves that God is who God is, and he goes and he kills all the prophets of Baal. He just had his greatest success as a prophet. And if you know anything about the prophets, you know they don't have a lot of success. It's a tough life, doing what God calls you to do in the life of his people. So Elijah has just had this incredible success, but instantly begins to feel alone. 1 Kings 19 says this: "When Ahab got home, he told Jezebel everything Elijah had done, including the way he killed all the prophets of Baal. So Jezebel sent this message to Elijah: 'May the gods strike me and even kill me, if by this time tomorrow I have not killed you just as you killed them.' Elijah was afraid and fled for his life. He went to Beersheba, a town in Judah, and he left his servant there. Then he went on alone into the wilderness, traveling all day. He sat down under a solitary broom tree, and he prayed that he might die. 'I've had enough, Lord,' he said. 'Take my life, for I'm no better than my ancestors who have already died.' Then he lay down and slept under the broom tree. But as he was sleeping, an angel touched him and told him, 'Get up and eat.' He looked around, and there beside his head was some bread baked on hot stones and a jar of water. So he ate and drank and lay down again. Then the angel of the Lord came again and touched him and said, "Get up and eat some more, or the journey ahead will be too much for you." So he got up and ate and drank, and the food gave him enough strength to travel 40 days and 40 nights to Mount Sinai, the mountain of God. There he came to a cave where he spent the night. Now, I was tempted when I read this story to do true expository preaching, meaning go through here and look at what the text is telling us. And what the text is telling us is, in his moment of fear and loneliness, God said, take a nap, have a snack, go for a run. Like, that's what it says in the Bible. I mean, he took a nap, and an angel appeared to him and said, you need to eat something. And so he ate something. And fell back asleep again. Told him to wake up and eat something. And then he had to go 40 days and 40 nights to the mountain. I just assume he was running. I mean, what else would he be doing? But there, even in his greatest success, he finds loneliness. And God reaches out to him and brings him to a new place. He brings him to a new place and comes and meets with him. The Lord said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And Elijah replied, "I have zealously served the Lord God Almighty. But the people of Israel have broken their covenant with you, torn down your altars, and killed every one of your prophets. I'm the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too." "Go out and stand before me on the mountain," the Lord told him. And as Elijah stood there, the Lord passed by. And a mighty windstorm hit the mountain. It was such a terrible blast that the rocks were torn loose, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake there was a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire there was the sound of a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. And the voice said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He replied again, "I have zealously served the Lord God Almighty. But the people of Israel have broken their covenant with you, torn down your altars, and killed every one of your prophets. I'm the only one left, and now they're trying to kill me too." And the Lord said to him, "Go back the same way you came, and travel to the wilderness of Damascus. When you arrive there, anoint Hazael to be the king of Aram. Then anoint Jehu, grandson of Nimshi, to be king of Israel, and anoint Elisha, son of Shaphat, from the town of Abel-Meholatha, to replace you as a prophet. And anyone who escapes from Hazael will be killed by Jehu, and those who escape Jehu will be killed by Elisha. Yet I will preserve 7,000 others in Israel who have never bowed down to Baal or kissed him." So Elijah goes, he gets to the mountain. God says, "Come out here," and he passes by, and he passes by in some odd ways, and he's not in the wind or the fire or the earthquake, but he's there in the whisper. But ultimately, he asks Elijah what he's doing there, and Elijah brings that complaint to him again. "I've been serving you, and I'm the only one, and now they're trying to kill me too." And God says, No, you're not the only one. Here's what I want you to do. Go and anoint these people. Go and prepare. I've got 7,000 others ready to work with you for my good. Elijah's an example of that intense loneliness that comes even in success, even in line with God's will, even when you're someone chosen to do a good thing. Elijah still had that moment where he sat down and said, "I just want to die. Just let me die. I don't want to do this anymore." And even when brought before God himself, his response was, "I've been serving you. Look what I've been doing. Why is everything going so poorly for me?" I could tell you I felt that way. I felt that loneliness that just says, "God, why don't I get to have what I need in this life? Why do I still feel alone, even though I have all these things?" It's important for us to learn from these encounters, to deal with the loneliness that we encounter. The first thing that we need to realize is that it's common. It happened to Elijah. It can happen to us. It happened to people throughout the Scriptures. It happens to people every day. There's this story about the Library of Congress There was some PBS program that was talking about it, and the librarian brought out this little box to show on this program. And this box was something that they found, it was the things they found on President Abraham Lincoln the night that he was killed. And he brings out this box, and one by one he takes out the things within it to show the camera and kind of explain what Abraham Lincoln was carrying, what he had with him when he was shot, April 14th, 1865. The first one was a handkerchief embroidered with his name. The second was a penknife that a country boy would have. Then a glasses case that was repaired with a string. Then a purse, a small purse containing a $5 bill, which was surprisingly Confederate money. It's interesting. But finally, he pulled out these old, worn newspaper clippings. The librarian Borson said the clippings were concerned with the great deeds of Abraham Lincoln. And one of them actually reports a speech by John Bright, which says that Abraham Lincoln is one of the best men of all times. He says, today that's common knowledge. The world now knows that British statesman John Bright was right in his assessment of Lincoln. But in 1865, millions shared quite a contrary opinion. The president's critics were fierce and many. His was a lonely agony that reflected his suffering and turmoil of his country ripped to shreds by a costly war. So there's something touching and real about one of our greatest presidents who carried with him clippings of newspaper articles that said how good he was, so that he could be reminded in those moments when he didn't feel right that there were those that saw the good. We all experience it. When you feel lonely, you don't have to feel like you're alone because you're not. We all experience that kind of loneliness. The good news is God is here and wants to hear from us. He invites us to pray. Today we can pray Psalm 13. O Lord, how long will you forget me? Forever? How long will you look the other way? How long must I struggle with anguish in my soul, with sorrow in my heart every day? How long will my enemy have the upper hand? Turn and answer me, O Lord my God. Restore the sparkle to my eyes, or I will die. Don't let my enemies gloat, saying we have defeated him. Don't let them rejoice at my downfall, but I trust in your unfailing love. I will rejoice because you have rescued me. I will sing to the Lord because he is good to me. We have the opportunity to come to God when we're alone. And I love Psalm 13 because it's an opportunity to come and cry out to God. God, why is this happening? How long will you forget me? How long will you look the other way? How long do I have to struggle with anguish in my soul and sorrow in my heart? God can handle my coming and crying out to him. But at the same time, that crying out turns into an ask, a question. Will you turn and answer me, Lord? Will you restore the sparkle to my eyes? And ultimately, to be able to pray, but I trust your unfailing love. I will rejoice because you've rescued me. I will sing to the Lord because he is good to me. The reality is we're going to feel alone. We do it all the time. But God is near. He invites us to cry out to him. He invites us to ask him to restore the sparkle to our eyes. And he invites us to trust him that he is near. And he can remind us, like he reminded Elijah, that you're not alone at all. I got 7,000 others that are still mine. You were never alone because I am here. In those moments of loneliness, I invite you. Go back to Psalm 13. Pray that prayer and let him come and be faithful to you.